Okay, welcome once again. Sunday, the 27th of September for our, I believe this is the 48th open discussion. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask them in the chat, either on YouTube if you're joining us there, or on Zoom. Also, if you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature and we'll call on you to ask your question. So you already have a couple of questions on YouTube, so we'll jump in there. First question from Obadiah says, what will one be able to display in order to show that a mantra lives inside of them?
They'll be able to give that mantra away. They'll be able to call on the power of that mantra to do many, many things. So I mean, it's so many ways to answer that, but there's great laws around the use of mantra and the power of mantra. And to break those laws, the karma is 3 and 5-fold. So when a person do have the mantra live within them, they have to govern themselves with great restraint because they're using a sacred mantra, the sacred words of creation given to us by God and the gods. So when they learn the knowledge of this mantra, they walk a thin road and using the power, and they try to use the power only in good.
The next question is, what yoga poses, or I think they mean asanas, are best for self-development?
It is said that the lotus is the best, or the siddhasana. When the masters came to the West, they gave other positions because when you come to because of the way this country is, they wasn't used to sitting in the asanas, and it was very difficult for them to do so. So they gave them alterations of that, but trying to create the same effect. But we are told that the siddhasana is probably one of the best asanas to use.
Okay, are there any additional questions?
What diagrams we going into?
So we're finishing up the 10 senses and moving into the mystic makeup of sensory perception. So let me put that up.
We did that last week, all right?
Yeah, I think we finished this one last time. And we got through most of this one, just not the table. I think the table at the bottom was the last thing remaining. And then moving into the mystic makeup of the sensory perception. And then finally, withdrawal of the senses. I think those are the last we have in this group of handouts. All right. So are there any questions? I figured you'd have a few questions since we were not on last week. Okay. Can you talk about the power of concentration and some of the practices to enhance focusing for long periods of time?
Yeah, I thought we was going to do a class on that after this. I guess I can go into it a little bit. There's several really good books out there that gives you the exercises for that. They don't tell you the mystic side of it, but they give you the surface or general information of it. And concentration it's really about being able to focus your attention on an object, place, or thing. And the more attentive you can become on anything you direct your mind to, the greater level of concentration you will achieve, to the point where your concentration will evolve into contemplation, where you begin to merge your physical senses with your astral senses, and then you always use concentration to trigger that merger. And when you begin to concentrate on something, because what you're essentially doing is heightening your vital and mental energy within the nadis. So when you get ready to not contemplate again, you have to de-escalate those senses. So concentration is a trigger point for contemplation. But in order to get there, you must be able to concentrate for long periods of time, until the point where you can get there in a short space of time. And then once you get to a contemplative state, you must train yourself to do the same thing with your contemplation. The same way you get on a bicycle and you try to balance yourself, and to ride on two wheels without falling. So you have to do the same thing for contemplation the way you did with concentration. You have to be able to trigger the contemplation and study things as they will be seen with the merged senses. And those merged senses are actually what people call psychic senses. Now, your merged senses is not only 5 senses, it's 10 senses. You know, and at least 10 senses, let's say that. So once you have trained those senses, then you can move into meditation. But then there again, concentration and contemplation becomes the trigger to bring about true meditation. Because you cannot concentrate, you cannot meditate if you can't concentrate and contemplate. So that's something that most people don't talk about. So, and the pranayama exercises is something that you can do for hours on end to develop your concentration. Chanting mantra is something you can do for hours on end in order to develop your concentration. Picking a particular object and looking at that object and examining that object is something you can do to improve your concentration for hours on end. So, I mean, there's many, many methods of doing that. It's just not staring at a candle, although staring at a candle is a way also to develop your concentration. So there's many methods.
Yeah, I got a quick question about that.
Yeah.
So what percentage would you say of that power and that ability would you say eventually falls to the subconscious mind due to the power of pranayama done properly and the and mantra? Because I mean, we all know that, you know, the relationship and the correlation between breath and mind is 100%. So at some stage, you know, doesn't that eventually, you know, doesn't it become like automatic, you know, like subconscious to the sense where, you know, due to just you breathing and practicing that deep breathing regularly for extended periods of time, that it just, the stillness of mind that is developed with that becomes automatic. And we know where you don't have to, like you say, stare at a candle and stare at a dot on the wall and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's a good question. The pranayama is several things. Pranayama is working directly with the nadis. So what is the nadis? The nadis is the vital energy running through your body and the mental energy running through your body. When you regulate your breath, when you regulate your breath and you bring full attention to your breath and regulating your breath, because that's the only way you're going to regulate it, is first with focused attention in order to follow the directions. What you're doing, you're creating a hyperlink with your mental and vital energies in the body, which eventually you will bring about a risen state of the flow of that energy, because nadis is the flow of energy, whether mental energies, vital energies, or a combination of both mental and vital together in unison. So that's why the preferred practice for concentration is pranayama, a mantra. Now, pranayama is also related to mantra. Your inhale and exhale is a natural mantra that is done by the soul. The reason that you can inhale and exhale on this physical plane is because that is a command by the soul to do so. And it is a mantra that the soul uses in order to lock you into this physical plane, this physical and astrophysical plane. So that's a mantra. So when you regulate the breath, you are chanting a mantra 21,600 times a day, because when you have gained control over the regulation of your breath. So what does this do? It's a fourth thing that it does. It silences the valence shell of your basic aura, where it stops the modifications. It lessens the modifications around the outer valence level of your aura, which is called the virites. And it eventually, when those virites are when you have total control over them, and you are conscious 24 hours a day. So that's where we are headed with the control of breath and to bring about concentration and contemplation.
Okay, so then, I mean, what you just said about the soul, now, does that go back to essentially the great celestial song that the soul repeats, and the domino effect of that, when it eventually, like the last domino that falls is essentially, we taking an inspiration or an inhale, and ultimately an exhale. Well, we're actually looking at it backwards, thinking that when you breathe and you're doing your pranayama, you're bringing your prana into the body, where it's really and truly the opposite way. It's the opposite way, because prana flows through your body, you then breathe, but the prana is really not flowing through your body just on its own. It's flowing through your body because of the celestial song that resonates from the soul, that triggers that mantra, which in brings the prana in, which eventually calls you to breathe. Is that correct?
Well, let's say this: what the soul did on a microcosmic level, once the soul built this auric body for itself, it repeated the great laws within that auric field by causing the inhale and exhale of that auric unit.
Right, but that's a shadow of the mantra that's being chanted by the soul, that's being released by the soul.
Yeah, but it's still the soul is doing it within that auric body.
Right, yeah, right. I know that. Right. Okay.
So it's only repeating what the earth did, what the sun did, what the moon did, what the solar system did, what the galaxy did.
All right, so as above, so below. Okay.
I have a question here. Do the laws of giving mantra count for mantras in English or other languages like Hebrew and Arabic with the sacred names of the Absolute?
The only authentic mantras I know, to my knowledge, is the mantras in Sanskrit. And the laws of mantra is a universal law. It's not only an earthly law, it's a law of the universe. Throughout all the galaxies, we understand that mantra, that law stands.
And could you explain what is Sanskrit?
Sanskrit is the first language of for this earth. It was the first language of this earth, and it is a language. It is a creative type language. It's the language. It's a language that the soul, the spirit, the absolute use in order to pull energy from the endless pool or endless potential of energy from the absolute. So that's why we are told that mantra is guaranteed. The power of mantra is guaranteed, because once you intone a mantra and have that mantra live within you, you can use that mantra to pull on the cosmic energy of the universe and beyond the universe. You can pull energy from the original source, from the absolute itself. So it's the more you become an expert at this mantra, the more you can pull on this mantra.
But that power we're talking about is really coming from within you, within the all knowledge space for each center, correct?
Yeah, but because you're connected to the all.
Right.
Connected to the centers. Connected to the spirit. But with that comes great responsibility. So, you have to be very careful about how you use the energy. So you have to have extreme knowledge and understanding, because you can push yourself forward into the future, or you could push yourself backwards to start over. So they said the prayers of a mantra must be totally selfless. That's what we're taught. Must be correctly balanced. No selfish intent must be a part of it.
Are there any additional questions? All right, then I guess now we can will be a good time. We'll transition into the handouts now. And as you have more questions come up, feel free to ask them in the chat. Let's see. Oh, wait. I have a question here. What is a seed mantra?
A seed mantra is a petal or what's called a BJ, the Sanskrit, and that is on each chakra. There's a petal around. There's petals. Excuse me. There's petals around the bindu of that chakra, or the major BJ of that chakra. So if you notice, each chakra has so many petals when you look at the charts. And that petal is the original. It's actually the original samskara of that chakra placed there by the soul as the soul develops the auric body. And in your meditations, when you reach your true meditative state, in order to bring about control over that psychic center or chakra, you have to do a meditation on the petals in order to synchronize the petals. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so going back to our mapping out the 10 senses and 10 sense organs in the head and body. In the previous class, we looked at sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, speech, generation, excretion, grasping, and movement. The 10 senses and 10 sense organs, and then looked at where they correspond, their functions correspond to the bodies. We also looked at how the nadis, specifically the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, correspond to the sensory organs in the head, as well as the nadis and throughout the rest of the body. So today we will look at this table here at the bottom. And move on to the next handout. And if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to ask them in the chat and we'll stop and address those questions. Just give me a second to bounce back and forth between the handout and the YouTube and chat and the Zoom, and I'll be able to get to your questions. So first, for the sense organs, we're looking at the nose. And the physical sense is the physical smell, and the psychic equivalent is astral and physical smelling. Then the advanced psychic equivalent is etheric and physical smelling, and it is associated with the Muladhara chakra at the base of the spine. Nima, I know you discussed this before, but could you briefly again go over the differences between a purely physical sense, a psychic sense, and an advanced psychic sense?
It's on the table. What do you say? Go ahead again.
If you could, I know you've discussed it before, but if you can briefly describe the differences between a purely physical sense, a psychic sense, and an advanced psychic sense.
The physical sense is what you're using right now. Nose, tongue, eyes, skin, and ears. Those are your sense organs. And you have a particular sensory perception through those sense organs by the nadis, because your nadis are directly connected to those sense organs, which gives you your perception. Remember, Kundalini is the Kundalini made consciousness possible. And the energy flowing through the nadis is that very small percentage of energy release from the Kundalini, which created the nadis, or the flow of energy throughout the auric body. So in the psychic, in the astral planes, you have eyes, nose, tongue, skin, and ears, and you have a sensory perception for the astral world. The things that bring about psychic senses is when you can merge the physical senses with the astral senses, and now you have psychic senses or risen type senses. When you go to sleep tonight, whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it, your you will leave your physical body. And your physical senses will merge with the astral senses, and you will travel through space and time. Maybe not far, maybe far, but you will repeat those things that you did. Those things you like to do during the waking physical state. But at that point in your astral body, you are in a risen state, although you cannot remember it unless you have developed yourself where you can remember it. So those are your psychic senses. Now, the yogi, the reason why the yogi would do pranayama and various yogas, Raja Yoga, is to consciously merge those senses and call on those senses at any time. And when you merge the physical senses with the astral senses, you have psychic senses. And then later on, after you have controlled your psychic senses, you merge the physical and astral with the etheric physical senses. And etheric senses usually are those senses that's regulated from the energies from the heart chakra to the crown chakra. The astral senses are those senses regulated from the energies from the chakras below the heart chakra. And when you can regulate the energies and use with the senses of the upper chakras, then you have advanced psychic senses. And that's the main difference.
So this process of merging the senses, the astral and etheric senses, is that a function of just increasing the amount of kundalini flowing throughout the notic system, or prana, increasing the amount of free flowing prana throughout the notic system?
Well, utilizing the energies that you already have in the notic system, using them to the greatest, to its greatest capacity.
So the more we clean up the nadis and clean up the aura, the more these senses will merge together and become more under our control, in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
In other words, we are told that between 2 to 5% of the power of Kundalini flows freely within our natural body, either less or more, and that's what gives us consciousness, allow us to use the sense organs and senses. Now, but the problem is the way our bodies are built, we've built up obstruction throughout the auric body, throughout the etheric bodies, the astral bodies, the pranic fields are all distorted with our negative samskaras, which creates all our fears and phobias, and then even the toxic waste that we have put into the atmosphere. So what we have to do now is train that flow of energy this consciousness that's flowing through our nadis, and within these shells or physical shells that we communicate with the outside world, we have to accelerate that energy in order to make it work better. And by accelerating it, we clear out the obstruction. And by doing these yogi exercises, we make it, we purify every layer, and by doing that, we get a clear perception. It's like on a clear day where there's not a lot of cloud. The radio waves, the electronic magnetic spectrum works fine because you get a clear signal with no distortion. So we have to create that clear signal for ourselves.
As you talked about clear signal, I was reminded of Dr. King's lecture on man's mind, and how, depending on our level of development, will predicate on how well we're able to access the different levels of mind that, permeate permeate the earth and everything around us. If humanity as a whole would begin to develop itself, how would the type of mind we're able to access change, and how would that change our society?
Well, you have to, metamorphosis have to come across the earth. As man's mind rises, his behavior change. So even the way he developed things, the physical material he used, all that stuff have to change. And he have to begin to understand why certain parts of the earth we shouldn't inhabit. And then certain elements of the earth we should not use. And, he had to come into direct balance with nature and the earth. So so many things have to change. And then when he do that, then you'll have a magnetic balance around the earth that will enhance our development. So eventually the newborns will be born in risen bodies. Not in the ways, and not in the physically distorted and damaged bodies that we're born now. And the same thing will happen on the astral planes and the etheric planes, and eventually the astral planes will merge with the physical planes. And you will only have the physical and etheric planes. And then eventually the etheric planes will merge again to a higher planes within the crown region, the crown chakra. And then you will have you only have the planes that's occupied by the avatars of that planet. If you can understand what I'm talking about.
Yes. And you said quite a lot in that statement, but I'm going to leave that to the other students to ask questions on and follow up with. So hopefully everyone is paying attention, got their gears turning in their head. And I will continue with this handout. So with the answers that Nehemiah has given so far, he's touched on everything else in this table. So the tongue, the eyes, the skin, and the ears, those sense organs, and their psychic and advanced psychic counterparts, and the associated chakras with them. For the tongue, for example, the Svadhisthana chakra, the sex center. The eyes, the Manipura chakra, solar plexus center. The skin, Anahata chakra, the heart center. And the ears, the Vishuddha chakra, throat center. I know it's self-explanatory, but I'd just like to ask why these, for example, like why is the nose with the Muladhara? Why is the tongue associated with Svadhisthana? Why are those centers tied to those organs?
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily know why we do in a sense, and then and we don't, but then it makes sense.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, it makes sense.
When you look at the function of those chakras, you can see how that would tie to those particular.
The Muladhara chakra, the base of the spine, that's associated with the physical smell. It's also associated with physical consciousness as well. And if you look at that region, that's the most dense region in the skeleton system. If you look at it,
I mean, the hip bone in that area.
yeah, you know, so it makes sense. And then you're right above the animal level. And one thing that animals have achieved is smell. You know, a dog can sniff out something from 5-10 miles away. You know, so in order for the animal to reach the human level of consciousness, they have perfected smell. And so we come into the human kingdom with the first senses that's used with consciousness is smell. And of course, with smell, you control taste, which is the next. And the sex center is the seat of basic consciousness. So that makes sense too. And it controls liquid. So consciousness is all throughout the body. 6% of 7% of the physical body is water, it's liquid. And it's also associated with that prana, Vyana prana, which moves throughout the entire body. You know, so it makes sense. Sight, the eyes with the solar plexus center. The solar plexus center represents heat and light and fire. So heat and light shines a light so that you can see. And the heart chakra represents touch and skin. Well, we are told that in the four states of sound, that when the sound energy reaches the heart chakra, then all the subtle bodies are formed and given meaning and placement. So that makes sense. And and then when you go to the throat chakra represents sound, hearing. And that's where the fourth sound bring about the fourth aspect to allow us to live on this gross plane of existence with clarity. So it's a filter. It purifies, it moves consciousness from the inner worlds into the physical world. So we can take our thoughts and use the fourth chakra, I mean the fifth chakra, in order to speak. And the sound also, I mean, hearing also give us equilibrium in order to allow us to move and also to travel, and to also give us the ability to shape and mold those things around us. Because like I told you, sound is the power, is a creative power. So you use sound in order to build things, in order to create things, whether you realize it or not. Your fingers and your hands is controlled by sound. And that sound is consciousness. And that sound is mind, and that sound is sound itself. So it allows you to mold and shape the things around you. And that's why that energy controls the head, the arms, the hands, and the feet, and the legs. So it all makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so let me see if we have any questions so far. There's a question here going back to our discussion on Sanskrit. So are all languages to some extent a perversion of Sanskrit?
Yes, we are told that is so. I know a lot of other people try to say that it's not, but according to the ancient books, we're told yes. The sun releases the AUM every 32 minutes. They said that the sun releases a sound vibration. And the ancient people told us it was the AUM. Even the scientists of the day, they cannot completely hear it, but they know that there's a sound signal coming from the sun. And with all their instruments out there in space, they have noticed this. But millions of years ago, the ancient ones told us that this was the case, that the word, the AUM, was being released from the sun in order to maintain all life in this solar system. And that the AUM, if you want to speak any word, speak the AUM if you have spoken all words. Because from that comes all language. So yes, that is the case.
Another question, in order to enhance our psychic abilities, are we looking to be more sensitive towards the subtle energies, subtle emotions, and sporadic visions? Is it more about uh, sensitive gentleness opposed to force? In other words, to recognize subtle energies, you need to be more sensitive towards these things to use it. Create a heightened sense of awareness, so to speak.
But I think all that stuff come to you as if you follow the rules. If you follow the rules, I mean, that's why I suggest the 8 limbs of yoga. And because if you follow that, then if you follow that precept and you become aware of the 12 main yogas, then in conjunction with the 8 limbs, then you would see and understand why you're doing what you're doing. And you will become more sensitive and more caring and more aware of the things around you. And that will bring you in alliance with the laws of God and the laws of preservation. And you will move away from the man-made destructive type laws and greed and selfishness and all the impurities that's spoken about, all the major impurities that's spoken about.
Okay. Now, also on this handout, you list the additional senses, the speech, grasping, procreation, excretion, and movement, and their associated sense organs. For speech, voice; for grasping, the hands; procreation, genitals; excretion, anus; movement, the feet. Are there also psychic and advanced psychic senses that correspond to these additional senses?
Of course it is. I mean, when you bring the mind under control, then you bring the astral body and the etheric body under control. So the etheric body, astral body, they have the same type of organs, the same type of senses. They just operating on different frequencies. But when you bring them under control, you can bring them into any realm of existence you are in.
In certain psychic abilities, such as like clairvoyance or clairaudience, does a portion of the aura project to whatever it is you're trying to remotely see or remotely listen to?
Yes and no. Your aura is linked to what? What did I teach you? And you always go back to the mystic constitution of man.
Your aura is linked to the all.
Yes, through the
chakras.
Yes, the chakras. So therefore, as I sit here, I sit everywhere. You understand?
Yes, I understand.
You know, so the wormhole that they talk about really is there, but it's really the chakras. In other words. So that's why when you when you ask to project somewhere where it looks like you just making a few steps, at least when you project to the etheric body, it's like you're just making a few steps. When you have traveled, 3,000 miles across the earth, or even 10,000 miles across the earth.
Right, because you're already connected to that. You're already there at that space.
Yeah,
So
because if your auric body is here on Earth, then and it's transmit and the energies are flowing through that auric body, and you have taken control over those etheric energies or that psychic center, then you are connected to the world, to that, and to the consciousness of this earth. So the only thing you have to do is manifest yourself to any point in your etheric or astral body.
Okay. All right, so that completes this page, mapping out the 10 senses and 10 sense organs in the head and body. Again, if you have additional questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we can go ahead and get those answered. Let's see. Guess we can start. I'll start at the top of this, and we'll start this handout today, and then we'll pick it up and complete it next time. There's a question here. So does that mean that we as individuals are a concentration from the soul?
What do you mean a concentration from the soul?
Yeah, I'm not so sure what that means. Charlie, could you explain a bit more? Or if Charlie, if you're, I see you're in Zoom, you can ask your question directly. You don't have to type it. Whichever works best for you. Okay, the mystic makeup of the sensory perception. So this chart moves from left to right, as is describing the auric field. So on the left, we have the soul creates an auric field of substance that possesses a state of all awareness. And then you see the complete ovoid auric strait. The next, the soul creates a limited mental state of consciousness, a series of limited sensations. And third, the soul takes a portion of the consciousness and breaks it into 10 sensations. Then the soul shapes these 10 sensations into 10 senses and 10 sense organs within an etheric, astral, and physical body. Okay. On the right-hand side here, it goes from spirit to soul to auric body and to auric mental body. So that's also here on the left-hand side. Of course, this chart going from top to bottom corresponds to the drawings as well. So auric body is here. Auric mental body, 10 mental senses, 10 etheric senses, 10 etheric sense organs. All right, so the 10 mental, 10 etheric senses, that's here. 10 etheric sense organs, 10 astral senses, 10 astral sense organs, 10 physical senses, and 10 physical sense organs, which is those senses, sense organs is there. At the bottom here, the auric body is the original manifested subtle body of the soul, created by the soul to allow it to gain experience on multiple levels of limited states of consciousness through countless reincarnations. The subtle auric bodies or unit is a series of subtle magnetic fields that exist on the etheric, astral, and subtle gross physical levels. Okay, so in that first sentence, the auric body is the original manifest of the body of the soul, created by the soul to allow it to gain experience on multiple levels, limited states of consciousness. So the auric body, we carry with us life through life, but it is only in this last state that in reincarnation we're generating new, I guess, physical and astral bodies.
Yeah.
Okay.
The auric body is indestructible.
Mm-hmm. So if someone is born or incarnated with a, let's say, a physical impairment, with blindness or deafness or something like that, does that mean that physical body that they're operating with is disconnected from that either that astral or etheric sense, or that sense, that physical sense organ is not receiving properly or operating properly the same way that
they created some type of blockage in their past life that allow that to happen like that. And of course, the auric body is operating directly from the soul, and the soul is the great avatar of your existence. So, what does the avatar does? It follows. It's like a lord of karma. So, what does it do? It follows the law strictly. It doesn't deviate from the law. So it forces us to go through that particular experience so that we can eliminate that from our karmic pattern.
Hey Nehemiah, I got a question for the second field, where it says soul creates a limited mental state. What's there, but what you did not put there, I guess for the sake of space, are the three states of mind, manas, chitta, and buddhi?
Well, that's all of that is there because remember, the soul builds the auric body from the four principles of Shakti. You understand?
And the four principles being?
The four principles being Vijnani, Chitta, Prana, and Amana, which is love, the love energy, the preservation energy.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So it takes the four principles of Shakti and builds this auric body, which becomes indestructible because it's pulling the energy directly from the endless potential. And then, because remember, the auric body is above consciousness. The auric body is used to develop consciousness. The same with the soul is above consciousness. That's why when the master becomes a bodhisattva or a cosmic master, which is an avatar, what does the master do? The master absorbs what?
Oh, he fully absorbs the aura into the space between.
Yeah, and he operates from the aura, because why? That's where his source is. That's where his link to the all is. And it depends on his ability and his ability to use and handle that energy, how great he will be, he or she will be.
Did you say the auric body is above consciousness or no?
The auric body is what? Is above consciousness.
Yeah, okay. Consciousness begins with the mind.
Yeah, the auric body creates these fields of consciousness via the soul. It's the same way some of these the scientists looking out in space and they say, oh, that planet doesn't have an atmosphere. That planet chooses not to have an atmosphere. Because why? Because it have absorbed the aura. It pulled that atmosphere, the aura back. No other planet came by and stripped it of its atmosphere. According to the mystics, it tucked that energy in, and now it's manipulating that energy to give out to other parts of the solar system or galaxy, or it's in a meditation for hundreds of thousands or millions of years to only come back out and do a great mission.
Oh, I never thought of that. So I don't want to go too far into that. So in the Nine Freedoms, when they talk about the Saturnians and the solar lords going into a meditative state, that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I think it was. I don't think they really understood everything they was talking about, but it was It was one of the theosophical teachers or teachings where they was translating a Upanishad talking about the moon, and they get the one thing they got right. They say the moon was an ancient being, older and more ancient than the Earth, and the moon had moved in the position of the Earth in order to serve the Earth, and the moon went into this hypo type dormant state in order to extend her power and energy to the Earth, to guide the Earth through what it's going through. Of course, there's this great being, the moon, knew that the Earth was going to suffer the way it was suffering. So it moved into position and shrunk its body to the exact 1/4 of the Earth mass in order to create a perfect balance to allow the Earth to do what she's doing. And that's creating a atmosphere for this pineal colony is here on earth, you know, and that she can withdraw 50% of her energy back and not accept 50% of the energy coming from the sun and the planets. So this it took a great, intelligent, godlike being in order to foresee millions of years ahead of time that the earth would need her help.
All of that for a race of criminals, huh?
Yep.
Quite the sobering thought. Let me see if there's any other questions. Should I just finish up this paragraph and then, or do you want to stop here?
It's up to you.
Okay.
That's the last one?
The last one is withdrawing of the senses. We'll save that for next class. I'll just finish up this paragraph. These auric magnetic fields of substance are designed to hold patterns of consciousness for the soul. It has the ability to receive and transfer mental intelligence to the various aspects of consciousness within the auric fields of operation. Also, these auric magnetic fields are designed to hold in place signature patterns of various degrees of subtle vital energies in time cycles. It's also capable of receiving and transmitting patterns of subtle vital energy configurations as well. The auric body acts as a manifested pool of endless potential that the soul has set up to pull down the universal mind substance and Shakti power in order to modify it into vehicles of expression. The auric body is used by the soul as a vehicle or tool in order to create the background patterns for building the correct proportion subtle or gross vehicles of expression with the exact karmic framework for the countless experience cycles needed. In other words, the auric body or bodies is manifested to operate on all planes of existence. Now, this means that the auric body or bodies is in full operation on every level of consciousness or realms throughout the 108 chakras within the human structure. I say this to point out that every chakra is not only a level of consciousness or vortex center of power, but a total realm of existence. The auric body is locked into all these vortex centers of powers, chakras, that are also realms of existence and also represent levels of consciousness of such complexity that it's almost incomprehensible. Okay, that's a lot there. I probably should have saved that for next class. Let's see. Where to begin with that one? The auric body is operating, or the auric unit, sorry, is operating on all the realms of existence across all 108 chakras. So does that mean, to some extent, the population of humanity is represented across all the realms of Earth?
Yeah, of course it does.
So why then, in a sense, are the higher realms practically empty?
That's the state of mind we work on. And you have to understand that when the masters say that it's empty, do you understand what that really means, right?
That the conscious or the bulk of the human consciousness is not present on that particular realm we're playing?
The active consciousness.
Oh, okay.
There's a dormant state of consciousness that everyone is there. You understand?
That would be our higher aspect or our higher selves?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the aspect that's dormant.
It's dormant, yeah. But the aspect that's active is the basic part, and the dormant is there waiting for the dormant part of our higher consciousness is directing us and placing limitations on us, but it's doing all that in a dormant state. So you look at it like this: as it is below, as it is on a higher plane, the same way it is below, right?
Right.
So what happens when the soul takes the Shakti power down through Sushumna, and then into the Muladhara chakra, the base of the spine? What happens?
It goes into a Shiva dormant state.
Right. And only a small part comes out, and it becomes the vehicle of consciousness that we must build upon, because that's the restriction that's placed on us. But at the same time, the higher part of the soul, the divine spark of which is spirit and soul, is locked away from us in a sense, only for us to call on in a certain way or procedure, right? So, but it's there. It's there. So.
I mean, basically what you're saying is, same way as an individual, we exist on all planes at all times.
Right.
We're conscious of the aspects of ourselves that are there. So is the physical, etheric, and astral manifestations of the planes on Earth that contain the same aspects of ourselves.
Right. The same way when we do the practice of the presence. What do we call them? We take energy up to what?
Into the heart center, up to the crown center.
Up to the crown center, to the golden spheres. And that's the real you, and that exists on the highest plane. That exists on the highest plane, but that's you. And then you ask for it to do what? You ask for it to shine as golden rays upon you.
Right.
To
be bathed in its light.
Yes. So yeah. So there's a part of you that's always there.
Is that part of you that's always there? Is that the first or second aspect?
For us, it's the first aspect. It's that first aspect. It's probably that first and second aspect of us. Okay. But our problem, we done split our countries up into probably hundreds of aspects in order to calibrate the evil that we have allowed to happen here on this earth.
All right, let's see, are there any additional questions or any final questions at all? I think this will be a good place for us to stop. Next class, I guess we may go over some final points in this paragraph, and then we'll move into pratyahara, or the withdrawal of the senses. Okay. See, so are there any final questions? So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to type out your questions or ask them in the chat. All right, if there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and close out today's class. If you do have any questions throughout the week, you can feel free to email them to us. Also, if you haven't already, you can join our meetup. Link is in the description of YouTube so that you can receive announcements of when we have class, as well as a link to our notes, the handouts we use, and more information on previous classes and resources to help you in your practice and studies. A quick look at something. Okay, and also I wanted to announce that Friday, next week, Friday, October 9th, is the last hour of the current spiritual push number 3. And so for those of you who are interested in joining us for our weekly 12 blessing services that we hold on Thursdays, we have 2 more Thursdays left within this current spiritual push. So I would implore you to join us in our weekly 12 blessings services. You can send us an email to be added to our list, or you can also join our meetup for the Florida group of their society and receive announcements on when we have service. Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and close out with the New Lord's Prayer. A new Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in humility do I ask you to send forth your power to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up and in doing so receive to their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. Oh, great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on, forever and forever. All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, Lisa, the 12 blessings we hold on Zoom as well. All right, thank you for your attendance, and we'll see you next time.